Hey, good morning, everyone. It is 8:24 a.m. As advertised, we will jump on our digital platforms and talk about some severe weather potential today. And today's not as clear cut as maybe we'd like, even still, but there's some things that we're looking at and some things that we're watching that will keep us on our toes, maybe a little bit. Things that we got to say, okay, is this going to happen, or how are we threading the needle today, and things of that. So we're going to walk through that today, this morning, with you, and look at what we're expecting. So far, it's progressing as I anticipate here. But there's still a couple of flies in the ointment, for lack of better terms there. So as you're logging on, let me know where you're watching from. And if you're joining us from far away, nearby, wherever the case may be, I also just want to make sure the audio is working and give some folks a chance to check on in. So going to keep an eye on things here and monitor. I'll be in the studio. Once I finish with this, then I've got to go out and set up the storm tracker. It sounds like Kevin will be in and heading down to the south to cover things. And I'll be up here all day, and we'll keep you covered. Adam's also, at some point, if things get a little rowdy, going to come on in here. Yeah, we got you covered. We always do. That's how it goes around here. So that's what we expect. So while folks are checking in, a lot of you are doing so. I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate your following for us here at WCIA. I want to talk more specifically about what's happening now. Should you have joined the forecast last night, the question was, hey, do we wake up and see rain to the north and west? And we do. That's on track with what we expected here. What that does is that limits the warm front from going too far north and adding more of us into the area. So I feel good about McLean, Ford, Iroquois, Livingston County, it being a wet day with some thunder, maybe some flooding potential, but I don't think the severe weather risk gets that far north. Along I-72, that's the area where we'll just kind of watch. Can the front get that far north? It's on the table, but do we get enough instability with that? Maybe a little more of a question. And then I think down here to the south is where we've been talking all along. South of I-72, we get some of that instability with that wind shear coming on in. So things are progressing as expected, but still got to watch a couple of other things here. This is that line of storms that's moving our way, the leading edge here, and it's actually moving pretty quick. Within an hour or two, it's going to be in the western edge of our area. It may slow down and lift more to the north. And so we're going to have to watch and see how that affects things here. This segment of the line may carry in that northward direction. And so we get that in here. Does it limit the afternoon instability from coming to the north? That's on the table. But also, could we see some additional development here on the backside? Not out of the question. So it's racing, but it's not severe at this point, and there's not a lot of instability ahead of it for it to work with. But we can always see that instability come on in and rise in our region here. And so that's something that we'll just have to consider. There is actually down northwest of Springfield, Missouri, keyword Missouri, there actually some severe weather. They've got a severe thunderstorm warning and a tornado warning with that second line segment that's down there. So as of now, the update that came out at 8 a.m. still has us on a slight risk. We didn't change that in their discussion. They mentioned they thought, do we need to upgrade? Do we need to see the potential for severe weather here a little higher in some spots? So they considered that upgrade to the enhanced risk level 3. And their discussion indicated a narrow corridor from Missouri, Illinois into Indiana. That probably is likely the farthest north, I-70. It also could end up being a little south of our area. So we'll see if they pull that trigger with the next update coming up at the 11 o'clock hour. But it doesn't really change our messaging here. We think that given the wind shear that's in place, typically these compact low pressure systems, they got a lot of wind shear to work with. And I'll show you that here in a second. The question is, can we get into that instability? And cloud cover can help to limit that. But it's the first day of summer, the longest amount of daylight in the year. And so you can often, during this time of year, get that instability back. The sun angle is really high. You can get that things to start cooking pretty quickly out there. And so that's why there's some questions. Well, if we clear things out, maybe we get another round, another chance. But I think we're primarily looking at one window of opportunity here that we've narrowed down, 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. And we're going to watch that 10, 11, 12 timeframe just to make sure that line coming in doesn't get a little out of whack here. But if we're looking at that peak timing, I'm going with 1 to 8 p.m. for that, so we'll keep you updated. Tornado threat, again, low, but maybe for some areas towards I-70 or south, it goes up a little bit. That hasn't officially been made yet. The flooding threat, though, has always been the big talking point here. High chance for some flash flooding in our area. That's going to be something that we really have to watch. So here we go. This is a look at instability wind shear. And notice here as we go into the afternoon, all that wind shear, all that turning of winds in the atmosphere. Well, we get some instability at the surface. That's fuel for storms to form and rise, hit that wind shear. And it's a familiar familiar time for a familiar setup for rotating storms to develop here. Should we keep the instability south? That's good for a lot of us. Notice there's not a lot of instability further to the north here, and so that may limit us from having some of those issues. And it's all about that warm front. You'll recognize this graphic if you joined yesterday here. Let me get that up here. The warm front, right? So where does it go? This is kind of in our forecast right through the middle of our area. The better chances down here for severe weather. If we get the instability further north to the warm front, then you can get severe weather along here. With that rain that's in place to the north, this to me is off the table. I don't see that warm front going that far north anymore because we've got rain over here, and that rain often limits it. It's a blocking, it's line back on the defense. It keeps things in place here. And then the other thing is, can we get a lot more rain to develop? Does this next line come in a little faster? Does it keep that warm front more to the south? That there would favor the I-70 corridor to be the severe threat. So we're kind of looking at things at this point here. Let's take a look at Future Track, and there's actually just some new updates in Future Track that are coming in now. You can see that rain to the north and west, but in general, it brings that complex cluster of storms our way. And there's still some more clustered cells, maybe individual cells that try and break out within that through the afternoon and evening. The particular ones that stand out to me are, again, down towards the I-70 corridor. This probably more of a flooding rain threat here to the north as it moves on through. And we're going to look through another piece of guidance together here that just came on in the new update. A lot of times this guidance is one that updates hourly. We call it the HRRR, the HRRR model, high resolution rapid refresh. And it's kind of picking up that line pretty well. So it wants to bring in some of that rain and thunder now, 11, 12. But notice maybe there's some of that additional development in the backside here. This is where I think that threat for strong storm activity may come from. And you can see maybe some of those more individual cells playing out here. So we'll watch it, keep a close eye on it. Here's the thing, though. Look at all that rain just sitting over us for hours on end. And you can see as we get to 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, things are starting to depart from our area. So that honestly doesn't look terrible from the outcome here. Kind of a one window with rounds of showers and storms that are coming on in. All right, let's talk about that tornado risk specifically here. We're at a 5 in yellow. Anywhere along I-72 east towards Danville and south, all in the 5. We haven't made the jump up to the orange level, the 6, 7 level yet. That could still happen. And if that does, the next chance for that's going to be at about 11:30 from the Storm Prediction Center. That may be in this zone right here. That's my favorite zone. The yellow area, though, as one color, we keep it a 5 all the way north. But if you get closer to that 3, you could think, maybe it's a little bit lower here, but let's just leave it at 5 here and keep monitoring that. So 5 out of 10 for areas in yellow. But I do have a favored zone, a slightly more likely zone where the I-70 corridor sticks out to me. I'm just not certain that we're going to get that instability all the way north to Champaign-Urbana, Danville, Decatur. Maybe it gets close here, but I think the best chance for rotating storms is going to be Taylorville, Mattoon, Charleston, Paris, Effingham. Those are the 4 areas and all of the surrounding communities there that stand out to me. So we'll see. The other thing, though, is if this morning round comes on in and keeps that front south, if there's an upgrade that comes out at the 11:30 update, maybe that's still far down to the south here, just south of our viewing area. So I just got some things to watch. It's all about where that instability ends up, right? Where that warm front ends up. And we tend to think it's going to be in this area here. But we're going to keep it at a 5 out of 10 now. And if there's an update needed, look around before noon for our update here. Here's the other thing. I know everyone always talks about the tornadoes. And you know what? The chance of seeing a tornado in your yard is really low. It happens, right? We had a number of us that had those issues in Charleston and Mattoon and Springfield, and it's been quite the year for tornadoes. But on a day like today, I think a lot more of us have a chance to see flash flooding in our neighborhoods than we do tornado. We're at high risk for flash flood potential here in our area, and we could see a narrow band of 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 inches settle in. Somewhere in this red area is most favored. But again, if that warm front ends a little more south, it's going to pivot that a bit in either direction. So which side of the warm front do you end on? That's going to tell you if you have a chance for severe weather or not. And we're watching that. That rain in northwest of our area here helps to keep that from going too far north. Then once you get that do you get the instability in that area here at the surface to help those storms to rotate? That's going to be south of that warm front where that's an issue. The flooding rain threat along and more than likely north, but anywhere has the chance to see flash flooding. These storms coming through will have a lot of tropical downpours. I mean, it will be a gully washer, a true water bomber for the area here. And then if you get those storms over the same areas over periods of time here, that's when you can add up those totals. So this particular model wants to keep it close to, if not just south of I-72, but don't lock in and say, oh, Springfield's getting 3.3. Oh, Paris is getting 1.6. We've seen these numbers adjust up and down. The trend is what we're looking for here. There's clearly a band of heavy rain. Does it go a little north? Does it go a little south? And that heavy rain band is 2 to 4 inches with local pockets of 4 to 6 inches, just to give you an idea here. So that's kind of the general consensus on that. We've got the flash flood watch. It's in effect. That's our only alert as of now. There's a chance we get some additional ones, though, and that's why we're here to watch things for you and keep you updated. That flash flood watch is in effect until 1 a.m., where storm activity may linger. I am going to show you the 7-day forecast, and this is just going to be a long-term planning here. First off, I think the work week then looks pretty quiet. It'll be mostly cloudy Monday, maybe some shower activity possibly Wednesday. Yep, next weekend, another chance for storm activity. So that's going to be something that we have to monitor here is this active pattern is not going away anytime soon, but at least we get a break during the work week for that. So we'll keep you updated on that. And then that's kind of my final thoughts. I think that the rest of June and in July, we're going to see periodic rounds of these severe weather threats continue. Maybe by August, things will better. We're going to have to talk to Mother Nature about that. Okay, let's answer any questions that you have. I'm going to put up the severe weather impacts. I've seen a few come on through. First off, actually, I really like this. Bryce says, I'd rather be a duck today than a Dorothy. That's a pretty good analogy there. A lot more of us are going to be ducks than Dorothys, by far. But we may have a few areas that have some Dorothy potential. That's fantastic. I actually really love that. And so far more of us are going to see the flooding rain potential than the tornado potential. But we just got to watch the tornado potential, right? You can have local pockets of damage, and that's an issue. The thing about the rain threat, though, is if you've driven in any of the rural areas, I was down in Douglas County yesterday, and there are some fields that have corn up in them. The corn's drowning, literally. There's standing water, and so that flooding threat is what really is concerning to me. There could be a lot of impacts to agriculture to that. We could see there were some ditches on 36 that were already full. We hadn't had them cleared out yet. The ground is pretty waterlogged in areas, so it does not take much rain to cause issues, and I think we'll get more than that. So that's an issue where flooding potential could be perhaps the biggest story. But it's kind of like, okay, flooding, we're talking about that. Basements, sump pumps, yeah. Everyone's always like, what about the tornadoes, right? The tornadoes, they're for lack of better terms, they're the sexy part of weather, right? They look really great. They're on TV. You look at them and you're like, oh my gosh, that's the big part. But the flooding threat can often be something that really catches on. And so if you're thinking about it, there's going to be a lot more ducks today than there will be Dorothys. So Bryce, thank you for that. That's a great one. I really like that. I'm probably going to steal that, Bryce. Thanks for that. Marcus asking about the rain prediction. Yeah, again, this to me stands out. And where we see rain and storms train over the same areas, don't lock in specifically saying, yes, it's settling right here. And this is exactly what it looks like, because there still can be some shifts north and south of this. If it's more south here, that means the severe weather threat's going south with it. And that to me is on the table for us. This type of outcome would leave Taylorville, Mattoon, Charleston, Paris, Effingham with a better chance for severe weather. Keep the I-72 corridor just with the rain and flooding threat, and then north still has the potential as well. You can see there's another axis of some moderate to heavy rain there. Just because I'm talking about the high risk of flooding, I don't think that everyone is getting flooding, but we think there's that zone somewhere, and you put it in the right spot, so you could have some problems. The other thing is the rivers are pretty high up too, so that's kind of what we're looking at. The rain and flooding threat really stands out to me, but sometimes in these little compact low pressure systems coming on in, there's a lot of wind shear. If you get a little instability, it doesn't take much to have some tornadoes happen. We could get through today without any in our immediate area. That could end up being a Southern Illinois threat more than it is ours, but we're kind of on that line. and we'll just see how the next few hours evolve. So that's kind of my thought process on that, where we're looking at here. The question I just saw, and they're coming in quick here. I'm going to try and answer some of them. Abigail saying, anyway, the storm weakens and starts to fall out. Here's what I think is, if we don't get the severe weather threat, then you've got the flooding threat to worry about, right? It doesn't mean you're going to get severe weather or flooding, but what's the risk? One or the other stands out to me, and that's kind of what the issue is here. There's going to be a lot of us, though, that, yeah, we get some rain, but we miss out on severe storms. And woohoo, right? Then we get to Monday, and I'm ready for a Monday for a change in quiet weather. But there's the potential that we see some of our area have a flash flood risk, some of our area have a tornado risk. Again, that flash flood risk might be the middle part north. That tornado risk might be more to the south there. And a risk is a risk, right? Some of you, when you're in the kitchen, and maybe it's your significant other, some of you may also have a risk of burning the kitchen down when you cook. It doesn't mean you burn the kitchen down, though, every time, right? The risk is there. There's someone in your life, that's that way, that's anytime they're in that kitchen, there's a risk they burn it down, but they don't always do that. But every once in a while, maybe some of you watching have had a kitchen fire. So you get the idea here. That's kind of what we're looking at with that there. So that's kind of my thought process. Yeah, Patricia's saying, I have a bag packed in case I have to leave my house because of flooding. If you're susceptible to flooding, if you live in a low-lying area, if you've had basement flooding before, if you rely on your sump pumps, make sure your sump pumps are working. Be aware of that. That is something that is important to think about here, where, I don't think we're going to talk about like catastrophic widespread flooding, but a basement flooding is enough of a nuisance, right? I mean, that's a headache for those of you that have had that before. Looking here. Starla saying she lived in Villa Grove during a big flood in the 2000s. Yeah, some of those common areas. The Emma River was pretty high. The Sangamon River was pretty high up too. I was up at Gibson a few days ago, heading that way, and I was like, there's a lot of water that still it takes time to flow down our rivers and streams and head out. And so ground's pretty saturated. So, the other thing is, if we get this rain, sometimes what can happen is, okay, it rains today, but the river flooding then becomes an issue tomorrow and Tuesday and Wednesday. And I don't think this is a catastrophic river flooding event at this point, but we just got to watch it, right? You put enough rain in the wrong spot and you can have those issues there. And so that's what we're looking at. Let me see here. Yeah, Tori is asking again, are you more concerned about the rain or the severe weather? I actually am more concerned about the flooding threat, given how saturated, because I think that affects a lot more people. Some of us, though, still do have that tornado risk. So I'm concerned about both, but I think the odds are more people are impacted by heavy rain, tropical downpours, and flooding. A few areas could have a tornado risk. And even when there's a risk for tornadoes, it doesn't mean you get a tornado, right? Think of all of the severe weather threats we've had, and there's been tornadoes around. Maybe some of you, as recently as Wednesday, have had an impact from a tornado, but there were plenty of events where you didn't have that direct strike. But when that threat does pick up a little more, storms move on in, we're seeing warnings. If that's the case, we're going to be here with you, and we'll walk you through those things with our team coverage there. All right. Actually, this is a really great point. So Heidi was saying, concern the trees that have loose limbs and the ones that didn't count is going to be awful. Yeah. So the derecho we had 3 years ago, actually, this was a great example, is it took down a lot of trees. It did a lot of damage, but it also weakened things. And we saw with subsequent severe weather events where weakened limbs came down and not as much strong winds. So, thinking about some of those tornado hit areas in Coles County and Effingham County, maybe there's some trees that are weaker and the wind didn't take them down the first time, but maybe the next few times those areas see additional limbs come down that are weaker with the wind is right. So that's a great point, actually, about that there. And yeah, and the other thing is the ground is pretty saturated, and so you can get some wind that can, uproot some trees and knock them over pretty quickly as well, which is something to look at here. Chelsea saying, what time should we expect the system to move through? I'll run one last time through the model, and I'm going to use this one. Again, storms are moving pretty quickly towards the Mississippi River. We get to 11 and 12 and 1. There's probably some activity west of Springfield, but then we'll see how fast it moves on through. Now, there may be some rain ahead of this. I think the severe storms would be on the backside of this with that wind shear. And then you can see here some individual cells trying to break out. It may be a bit messy looking, but anytime you get something that stands by itself, it maybe can tap into that wind shear a little more. So I'm really pinpointing that 1 p.m. till 8 p.m. time frame as the most likely time for severe weather. But that is my thoughts on that. So, yeah, that's what we're taking a look at. All right, that's what I got for you folks. We're going to keep you updated as needed through the day. I'm going to take a little break, go get some breakfast, set the storm tracker up, and just take care of some business behind the scenes here. And then I'll be watching for those updates from the Storm Prediction Center, kind of monitoring things. And by lunchtime, I'll be back in here and keeping an eye on things. So if you're heading out to breakfast, heading out to church, you're fine. I think by lunchtime onward, really, I think for a lot of you, you don't have to change your plans, right? You can still go do things, but as long as you have a plan on what to do wherever you are, then you're good. But if you're looking for that time period that is just worth watching, 1 p.m. till 8 p.m. is when that risk of severe weather seems to be present, at least in part of our area. Thanks for watching. Take care. And if all else happens and there's no severe weather, then the next time you'll see me is at 5:30 p.m., assuming there's no sports. I think, is there NASCAR on TV today? I don't remember. But if not, we'll be here as needed. If we need to jump on digital with some additional updates, I'll be here for you and keep you updated. All right, take care, and we'll see you.